My name's Jonathon Levinson. I've been with IQ Metrics for just over 3 years now. I've held a couple of different positions, but my current title is client manager and special projects. So I live within the client experience, but more specifically in the client engagement circle. I have been using Retail IQ for, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years. It's been a long time. I started in the cellular accessory business back in 1996, and then eventually started getting into more of the activation part of that. And yeah, it's been a long journey.
So you say a couple roles, Jonathan. What was the first role that you came over to IQ Metrics for? I presume it was something about your client knowledge and experience.
It was. I was actually hired for a strategic client launches. So both myself and Andrew Kazarin, who now works over at Kova, started at the same time. So that's basically what the position I was hired for. That only lasted for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe 8 months. So that was my first position.
And that changed. Was that like we changed the way we think of strategic clients, or it didn't quite fit?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, I think there was at one time there was an influx of these strategic launches and stuff that was coming through the pipeline.
mm,
But those projects, from my understanding, kind of got slowed down for various reasons. So it didn't really make sense to keep that many people within that specific circle.
right. So the continuing theme, I'm certain, is that you've got this valuable user client perspective in pretty much anything you probably do. Right? And where are you using it now, or how do you apply this client perspective?
Well, I've worked for a lot of different companies. I've been in various different positions, but I've always worked within the organization and have never really worked specifically for a department. So I kind of use that same mentality today. So whatever kind of information I can share with others, I'm happy to. Obviously, as a client manager. I know some of those struggles, right? Those challenges, not just from a system perspective, but really a changing of mindset, right? So people get used to doing something for so long, and when they're introduced to new functionality or there's a new feature enhancement for some of our strategic clients, that's kind of where my thinking cap comes on, and I'm trying to not only help them solution on the best path to go, but also to try to help them alleviate or see the bigger picture, which is the end result. So
I'm gonna. I think this is probably pretty selfish. I'm gonna get you to try and put me give me a better picture of what your relationship with one of these clients looks like. Uh, these might just be yes or no questions for a while. Do you talk to them on a first name basis? I presume everybody
yes,
does.
absolutely.
You know the names of their kids.
Some of them I do, or they've told me and I just forget about them, but it is something that I've been trying to work on.
When they're struggling with a problem and uh, they're just not getting it, you say, "You're just not getting it. You need to rethink." Like, how casual or blunt are you with these folks?
Well, it depends, like who it is, right? So it depends on the rapport that you have with that customer, or even an internal person. Um, typically, I have learned to be more patient with people. I had a perfect example today. I won't mention the client, but just could not seem to grasp the concept of performance groups. And I didn't understand why and how I could have communicated any better. But I got on the phone, I went through the process with them, I walked them through. So I would say I'm a fairly patient person when it comes to work. I am very impatient in my personal
I,
life.
how do they describe, how do, well, maybe it's a variety, but how does uh, your best relationship with a client, how do they describe you? They say, I've got a guy over at IQ Metrics.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the word guru. I've heard the wizard. I've heard a couple of really, crazy things out there, but it does kind of fit the form. And it's not my ego talking. I just happen to be very knowledgeable when it comes to, again, not just RQ, but the business aspects and the things that it takes to be successful in an organization. So.
Okay, and then when you're talking internally to someone, I worry that they think you're a thorn in their side. But that's the worst case scenario. How does it, when you go help someone internally, they're not like, oh geez, I got to fix this. What are you giving them, or how do they describe that?
Well, probably. I mean, I'd say, especially since we've been home, I've had a lot more requests after I did the Excel things and those kind of classes. I had more people reaching out to me saying, "Oh, I'm really having this type of issue, right? I can't get this formula to work. I don't understand how to do this." So I'm always more than happy to hop on and help people out. So I think people. Um, think about me when it comes to some kind of problem or issue that they're having.
Yeah, that Excel thing is an absolute home run. I shouldn't have said thorn in your side. I think I have a bad, um, an unhealthy perspective of, when you go try and represent client needs internally, it can be struggling. Obviously, you, um, really, like, you help people, especially with that Excel stuff, help them do their work better. Uh,
Yeah.
that Excel stuff, is that thematically connected to the client representation stuff, or is that just simply who you are as an individual, as you're always looking for
The
value?
only reason that I know what I know when it comes to Office and Excel and Access and all the other things is because, again, in my career, my earlier career, I was put into positions that had to take care of reconciliation, that had to pay out employee commissions based on complex comp structures. Um, and I literally had to teach myself, right? So I never really had a mentor to kind of teach me. It all kind of fell on my plate, and I just got it figured out. But I love sharing that, because if someone could have just showed me half of what I did in that 10-part series in the beginning, it would have saved me years. I would be way more advanced than what I was today. So yeah.
Do you have any more of those in your back pocket?
Um,
Like,
the next thing that we were talking about that I thought would be super useful is more around PowerPoint, and not just the application itself, but how do you start from the very beginning of having to do a presentation, right? What's the next steps? How am I going to put together a presentation, keep it conformed, keep it interactive, those types of things. Now, this is based on my opinions, right? So I just know what works for me. But I think foundationally, if you start with an overview and you break out your slides and you follow some simple guidelines, you can actually um, building a presentation actually becomes a lot less stressful. So that's kind of what I was thinking.
that's really cool. Um, the the potential theme in my mind is uh, you it's a great way to learn. Is you say, I've got a thing I need to do, and I'm just going to go figure out how to use this tool for it. Yeah, it doesn't sound like you necessarily academically learned everything about the power of Excel. You just said, what do I need to to use in here? And it's sort of this trial and error discovery of what you need to do.
Yep. And
And
again, like all those videos that I did, I wasn't really expecting people to withhold that information, right? To hold it and be able to implement it immediately. It was more of like, hey, watch these videos, and then you're going to get into the situation, be like, oh man, I know I saw that video. I know it can get done. So
mm-hmm.
from there, right, it kind of sparks, you know, maybe you don't work for IQ metrics, maybe you can't get back to that video, but it sparks in your mind, holy crap, I know I've seen something similar. I can get this done. I can go do my research and facilitate whatever needs to get done.
So I'm just thinking about the longevity of this video, and somebody 2 years from now is going to look at this and say, well, what is it to be a client experience manager? But they actually might say, what does it take to just um, deliver value to my colleagues, maybe in ways they didn't anticipate?
Yeah, and yeah, I do share some of my knowledge with my clients if it ever gets to that point where they're saying, hey, I got this report, but I need to look this up and I need to summarize it. And like, I think overall, everyone should know fairly the basics from a client experience perspective. Again, one of the things, especially for 2020, and we've made it clear, is that we want to uncomplicate wireless retail, right? And it's not just about the software. And we want IQ metrics. We want us to become the specialists, the people that could lean their head on us and say, hey, how would you handle this situation, or how would you clean up these situations? So I like utilizing my skills, and I think anyone that's dealing with a customer that's dealing with data, if they could just get the basics done, they're actually become, it just basically makes them a lot stronger, and gives you another skill set.
I think I'm probably missing questions I'm supposed to ask you, except that response was just such an excellent bow on the conversation. I think we should at least stop it there until we do round two. So have I missed something that we should chat about before? I'm just trying to make it a time capsule thing. So anyway, okay. So thank you, Jonathan. This
Yeah.
was fascinating to hear about this, and I really appreciate your time. And
Yeah,
thanks for
thanks.
sharing this with everybody.
It was great seeing you.
Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
Cheers.